Welcome to the Thursday stream. It is indeed Thursday, Friday, Junior. Welcome, everybody. Alana Cat, welcome. Derry Bennett, Heat. How's it going, everybody? Rest in power, next Benedict from Oklahoma. Yes, that is a pretty heartbreaking story. It is a very, very sad story. I'm so angry about that right now. The lack of justice and urgency is sickening. Yeah, the last thing... Sorry. The last thing that I saw about this story is that they're trying to say that their death wasn't as a result of the beating that they took. Which it's kind of hard to believe. There was some underlying possible medical issue that they may or may not have. Yeah, but like, you know, I have a hard time believing that the assault didn't have anything to do with it. I'm relaxing. I've had an insanely long weekend. That's good to hear. It was a beating, and those teens beat them to death, and they're getting away with literal murder. Yep. Dairy Arts, welcome. They all need to be locked up. Yep. Act like an adult, do the adult things, get tried like an adult. Yep. And this was obviously very targeted. This was very targeted. It's not a secret, okay? Juvie isn't any fun either. How you doing, man? How has your week been? It's been alright. It's been alright. I'm just glad the weekend is basically here. Alright, folks, we gotta get this show started. Before we get started, of course, I'd like to remind everybody that if you want to support the channel, you can by hitting the follow button, and you can also go onto the YouTube and hit the subscribe button and like the stream and do all that awesome stuff. Michael Haster, welcome. You can join the Discord. Okay, this weekend is, believe it or not, this weekend is the last Saturday of the month, which means that there is a movie night. Sci-fi seems to have it. And I think that sci-fi comedy seems to have the most views, so why not do something that kind of embodies both? So I'm thinking Starship Troopers. I think it is an appropriate choice, and also it just kind of fits with all the discourse that's been going on It just works. So that seems to be like the top of the list. That seems to be at the top of the list. I'm out of work for medical reasons. I'll hopefully be able to join this movie night. Nice. Well, if you are able to and you want to, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you want to live forever? I am doing my part. Too much ish to deal with. Sheesh. It's a movie quote, I'm assuming. Yes. Alright, folks, let's get this started. Let me just search something real quick. I followed on Twitter. Thank you. Okay. Oh, you're on Blue Sky? What? You should follow me. Yeah, it's a Blue Sky is a Twitter clone. Oh, you followed me? Okay, cool. Follow back? Yes. There you go. Yeah, another new Twitter clone. Two people like my first post. People I don't know, and I was floored. I mean, like, I think Blue Sky, as far as like experience wise, I think it's better. Oh, just like another social media platform to keep up with. Yeah. Yep. I'm not on Twitter or Facebook or anything besides Discord. No more Insta, no Messenger. I feel that. Like, I have an Instagram. coincidentally the same, A Difficult Truth. I don't really use it. I don't really use Facebook really, not that much. Um, yeah. Like the main things that I use are YouTube. The main things that I use are YouTube, Twitch, and like Twitter. That's about it. Cause like anything past that, and it's kind of hard. Like you said, Alana, it's kind of hard to keep up. I can't do it. I followed you, but I don't use it anymore. I uninstalled it. Gotcha. That's funny. I still have Instagram installed. Forgot about it. I have Twitter, but I barely ever use it. I have a TikTok I make rambling videos on sometimes, and Discord. I used to have TikTok. I used to have TikTok. Alright, folks. Let's get this started. I think we should probably start with some lighthearted stuff. Yeah?
And Trump, dead last. Look, Lisa, where to begin? This is infuriating in so many ways.
Donald Trump has just been ranked as the worst president in the history of the world.
Oh, no.
Or at least in terms of the U.S. So I'm going to go over these rankings and get to how Fox News is a little bent out of shape about this. Here is the headline from The Guardian. Donald Trump ranked as worst U.S. president in history, with Joe Biden at 14th. And, I mean, another way to put this is how Fox News framed this story. New presidential rankings place Obama in top 10, Reagan and Trump below Biden.
Yeah, I guess that's one way of framing it. 4 years ago, back then, we could try to be in denial that Biden wasn't senile and Trump wasn't corrupt. Well, I don't think anybody was in denial, except for like Twitter. I think it's pretty obvious that Trump was corrupt, and now more than ever, it's pretty obvious.
Where's Trump? I don't know, but he's below Biden somewhere. Just don't worry about it. It's burying the lead here, as Fox News, of course, for obvious reasons, is. But this was a survey of 154 scholars that placed Trump at 45th, last place. Now, this is the full list. So, it's important to note here. This is not a list bestowed.
That's the beautiful thing about it. Now it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, you can deny that too. True.
To us, by the almighty gods. This is just the opinion of some scholars that are political science scholars. So they have a certain perspective that you may or may not agree with, depending on where your favorite president ranks here. Like, we'll get to Reagan later. Reagan in the top, anywhere near, the top 40 is ridiculous, but I'll get to that later. But, Lincoln, FDR, Washington, okay. There's no exact science here, is my point. Like, it's all just opinions based on people that are political scientists. Now, most of them, these scholars are connected to the American Political Science Association, and their idea was to create a ranking of presidential greatness, which also, it's important to point out here, you see the changes. So this list has changed from year to year, depending on how people are feeling that year about a certain president or where the certain sentiments are. They mentioned Andrew Jackson, there being more of a spotlight on his history and why he's gone down the list because of that. So, it can change depending on the year, depending on what people are talking about. It's, again, not an exact science here. On Trump, though. So Trump is a uniquely divisive figure. His legislative record slim, his refusal to accept defeat by Biden leading to a deadly attack on Congress, and his post-presidential career dogged by 91 criminal charges.
I mean, like, you would think that somebody like Andrew Jackson would be pretty down the list. But yeah.
Arising from actions in office or on the campaign trail, which also, I think, goes to maybe why he is last. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be last, but the fact that this is being done in a year where Trump is facing all these charges, this is going to be more top of mind for people making this list. In the presidential survey, Trump is also ranked behind, quote, such lowlights as Franklin Pierce, Warren Harding, and this is my favorite, William Henry Harrison, who died a mere 31 days after taking office. Trump ranks below William Henry Harrison. Now, this is where we get to the Fox News reaction. They're not very happy about this.
A new ranking, and I'm going to add, in my view, a highly questionable ranking of presidents, is turning heads after Biden came in higher than both Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan in his wildest.
It's not that serious, dude. Okay? Like, this is what qualifies as news, to the point where they need to make a segment on this, okay? But I guess it's important to keep that, that narrative going that, liberal scholars, just hate Trump because he's Trump, and that it's absurd that that Biden somehow managed to rank higher than Trump and Reagan.
Streams. The survey was done by the Presidential Greatness Project, who claim to be the foremost organization of social science experts in presidential politics. They may be the foremost example of the disconnect between ivory tower academia.
Wow, I called it. Holy crap. All right, chat. I literally did not watch that segment, okay? I literally did not watch this video. You can look at the thing. I literally did not watch this video. What did I say? Huh? You gotta keep spinning that narrative of like these liberal scholars, tainting politics or whatever. Wow, phenomenal. Damn. And just to be clear, okay, this is not because I'm some not because I'm some omniscient person, okay? It's just that this is so freaking old, okay? This has been used, this tactic has been going on for so long that it's just, it's just kind of par for the course how the right wing operates, okay?
And real people. That aside, Abe Lincoln ranked first. Okay, fair. Then comes Obama at 7th, and Biden came in 14th, actually beating Ronald Reagan, who came in 16th, and Trump dead last. Look, Lisa.
I mean, I would probably rank, like, again, this is all just like opinions from like a bunch of different historians or whatever, social scientists, or whatever. Personally, I would rank Reagan pretty low too. There's a lot of stuff that he did that we're still paying for till this very day. I believe yesterday I got the perfect encapsulation, euphemism, analogy, whatever you want to call it, whatever the right word is, example by the simulacra. Like, they literally built a Donald Trump-sized chair and he sat in it. And part of that process started from part of that process was facilitated because of Reagan.
So where to begin? This is infuriating in so many ways. 154.
Oh no, it's infuriating that somebody's opinion doesn't align with mine. Whatever. Stay mad.
Respondents, they are the ivory tower elites who in no way represent the view of the American people.
Oh, yes, the Ivory Tower elites.
Yeah, the Ivory Tower academic elites, and this is why, by the way, education needs to be gutted. Yeah, cool, nice meme. Like that's literally the only like angle that Fox News can basically use, because like this is not a story, okay? Like this is a nothing burger. To be like to pretend that you're angry about like a bunch of people's opinions about your favorite president. It's like, come on, it's really actually not, in my opinion, okay, as also a talking head, it is my opinion that I think that the real point of this is just to continue to spin that narrative. It's got nothing to do with Trump or Reagan or Biden for that matter. It's just to be able to keep spinning that narrative.
Not like Kayleigh McEnany. No. She went to Harvard Law School. Little known Harvard Law School.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, that's expected, right? I didn't even know she went to Harvard, but yeah.
Unbelievable. The Ivory Tower elites. Whenever you hear any conservative on television complain about the Ivory Tower elites, just go and look up where they went to school. Very likely they went to Yale or Harvard. And that goes for politicians as well. So it's just this show they put on for people. Oh, we are for the real Americans, not those Ivory Tower elites. Unbelievable. She also went, by the way, to Oxford. So, long list of elitism in Kayleigh McEnany. Now, I got one more clip here because this
infuriating.
They get really bent out of shape, not even necessarily about Trump being last, but about Reagan being where he is.
There's a nutrient that many of us are deficient in that could potentially add years to your life. It's omega-3 fatty acids.
You're telling me Ronald Reagan, who brought us peace and prosperity, inherited a mess out of Carter, and only his administration brought down the friggin' Soviet Union, that he ranked...
Yeah, dude. True. Promethean Rebellion. Thank you for the follow.
ranks lower than Joe Biden, who has given us high food prices, high gas prices, an open border, educational...
Yeah, no, none of this has to do with Biden. Also, there's no such thing as an open border. It doesn't exist. And the usual conservative nonsense, okay? No such thing as an open border. Inflation is a product of a lot of different factors, including maybe, I don't know, corporate greed. Yeah.
Test scores at a 30-year low. The world seems like it's on fire.
Aren't these the same people who want to gut education? And didn't just 5 seconds ago we were told that, like, the narrative, the implication is that, like, you know, we're being talked down to by academic elites, so therefore, like, we shouldn't listen to them?
Because it is, and all the crime we've talked about in major...
Crime has nothing to do with Joe Biden. Also, crime is still, by the way, at a historic low and declining.
Cities. You're going to rank him above Reagan?
All right. So Reagan. Now, first, it's important to point out that he is getting really angry over the fact that Reagan is in 16th place. It's not really all that far back. Also, again, this is the opinion of some people. You don't have to agree with it. It's not worth getting worked up over either way. On Reagan, though, it's important to note that there were some elements of Reagan that would be considered way too far left now, especially by the Republican Party. For example, amnesty for all illegal immigrants. Imagine Democrats trying to do this, let alone Republicans.
Well, you know, a certain candidate back in 2019, you know, just a couple years ago, ran on it. I'm just saying. And by the way, like, just because the Republican, just to clarify, just because the Republican Party would consider something like this far left today, doesn't mean it is far left. Does that make sense?
Trying to do this. This is, even though I wouldn't consider this
Omega 3 fatty.
left wing, this is just humane in my opinion, but this would be considered too far left now. That said, if you want to truly understand why wealth inequality is so bad, why wages are so low, just go back to Ronald Reagan. Neoliberalism and Ronald Reagan at the head of it is really what kickstarted everything. This is one example.
True.
And the preceding events that came after this. So he described, first of all, big labor as a major problem in the U.S. And he led the actor strike 21 years earlier. Then in August 1981, he, in office just 6 months, he fired 11,500 striking air traffic controllers. He barred them from working in their old jobs or anywhere in the Federal Aviation Administration for the rest of their lives. His administration also formally decertified their union, the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization. Reagan's response to the PACO strike was unprecedented in the post-World War II period. It had a chilling effect on the fortunes of unions and working conditions, contributing to ongoing wage stagnation and the loss of various forms of leave and entitlements. Reagan is the only union leader to serve as U.S. president. Paradoxically, he was also one of the most aggressively anti-union presidents of the 20th century. And that led to this massive split between the share of income going to the top 10% and union membership. As union membership declined after 1981, massive decline here, the share of the income going to the wealthy increased. Less money in the pockets of average people because of what Reagan did. And this goes directly to, the Trump base. Drop in union membership has taken $58 weekly out of the wages of non-union working men without a college degree. So Trump loves the poorly educated. It's conservative policies that he is pushing. This top-down approach, this trickle-down economics that has led to this massive split between the wealthy and everybody else.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
It's neoliberalism. And by the way, which was also continued by Bill Clinton and has continued on. So, no one is innocent here. But it's worth noting that Reagan was the beginning of all of this. 16th place is much too high for Ronald Reagan, in my opinion. It's neoliberalism. And by the way, which was also continued by Bill Clinton and has continued on. So, no one is innocent here. But it's worth noting that Reagan was the beginning of all of this. 16th place is much too high for Ronald Reagan, in my opinion. But again, this is a list made by a bunch of opinions of political scholars. It doesn't mean you have to get too worked up about it. It's just funny to see Fox News, go crazy over the fact that their dear leader, Donald Trump, is in last place.
Yep. I mean, that's basically it, right? Like last time I mentioned, it's easiest to control uneducated people, all part of the plan. Yep. Fantastic meme. All right, let's shift gears here.
Chaya Raichik of Libs of TikTok is the queen of defamation who routinely doxes and slanders LGBTQ plus people and their allies, all for views, clicks, and clout on the internet. But now she's mad, and ironically, she's threatening other people with defamation lawsuits because they're daring to point out that her rhetoric sometimes leads to violence against LGBTQ plus people. They're daring to point out that what she's doing is fostering a climate of hate and bigotry towards queer people.
Yeah, like this is pretty demonstrable. At this point, like there is a pretty big stack of evidence to be able to point to this assertion. right? And I don't know, I didn't watch this video, but I'm pretty sure I remember, I don't know if Mike's going to mention it, but I'm pretty sure it was revealed, it was leaked, that she knows that a defamation lawsuit on her end would fail, because she's just doing it to silence people.
That sometimes manifests in violence, and as a result, she's trying to silence them by threatening them with defamation lawsuits. Now, said violence materializes in a variety of ways. For example, when she falsely accuses pediatric hospitals of doing sex change surgeries on minors, or claims that schools are grooming kids by distributing LGBTQ+ books to them. Well, her followers sometimes get so worked up that they end up harassing or even making bomb threats to whoever's in her crosshairs, 21 and counting so far, according to a report by NBC News. But now people are pointing the finger at Chaya Raichik once again because the anti-LGBTQ+ environment that she helped to cultivate at a particular school in Oklahoma led to bullying and ultimately ended in the death of a non-binary teenager named Nex Benedict after they were beaten by 3 girls in a school bathroom.
Right. And also, just to be clear, this is the same person, by the way, Chaya Raichik, also happens to hold a position in that, is it school board? I want to say some kind of position within the education in Oklahoma.
But before it got to that point, they were bullied relentlessly, and The Independent reports the bullying had started in earnest at the beginning of the 2023 school year, a few months after Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill that required public school students to use bathrooms that matched the sex listed on their birth certificates. A few weeks ago, on the 7th of February, the bullying allegedly erupted in violence when Nex suffered severe head injuries during a physical altercation at Owasso High School.
A physical altercation. Yeah, okay.
According to the Owasso Police Department. Now, during the physical altercation, Nex was badly beaten and bruised, and at one point, they hit their head on the ground when they were knocked over, and the school called their mom but didn't call an ambulance, which is mind-boggling to me. And their mom ended up taking them to the hospital later on for treatment. They were subsequently dismissed in the evening, and the next day, well, they weren't actually better. They collapsed, and by the time EMTs arrived, they had already stopped breathing and died shortly after. A 16-year-old child died. They lost their life in a likely hate crime that occurred at a place where they were supposed to be safe, at school. But in Oklahoma, the bathroom usage of trans children is policed thanks to a law signed by Oklahoma's Republican governor, which can and often does lead to bullying when students suddenly are using different bathrooms than the ones that they were using. And furthermore, here's where Chaya Raichik comes into play. The Independent continues, an Owasso High School teacher who Nex had greatly admired resigned in 2022 after they were featured in one of Miss Raichik's posts. Quote, Nex was very angry about it, Miss Benedict said. Miss Benedict said that teachers who encourage debate about gender issues were not promoting sexualized content. Quote, they're allowing the students to be who they are. Now, what exactly did that teacher do that was so bad, you ask? Well, in a now deleted tweet, Libs of TikTok shared a video of him telling LGBTQ+ youth, quote, if your parents don't accept you for who you are, fuck them. I'm your parents now. In a small town, that led to controversy, and that teacher resigned. Let me just say this. The fact that that teacher resigned is absurd, because that is what adults should be doing. Affirming the identities of LGBTQ+ youth can be life-saving. Queer youth, especially trans youth, are disproportionately at risk for suicidal ideation, so to have someone there to accept them and affirm their identity is really important. But queer students lost an ally at that school who dared to defend them. Nex lost someone who they cared about, who cared about them, who could be there for them as a mentor. Now, I haven't seen anyone blame Chaya Raichik directly for Nex's death, but people have said that adults politicizing trans issues and policing every aspect of their existence is going to have a ripple effect, right? When politicians and parents demonize trans people, their kids hear that and adopt the same hatred towards their peers who happen to be trans or non-binary, which then results in bullying. And after Chaya Raichik harassed Nex's teacher into resigning,
Yeah, like this idea that like people like Kaya Rychek don't have any responsibility for their platform is wild. That's right. Children don't get sex surgeries; they get gender affirming care, as in using proper pronouns, respect, and medication that helps the changes they go if they're not having mental health issues and hormonal changes. Correct. They could have expressed it better, but they had good intentions. Good teachers get no gratitude. True.
Oklahoma School Superintendent Ryan Walter appointed her to the Oklahoma Department of Education's
Yeah, there you go. It was the part of the Oklahoma Department of Education.
Library Media Advisory Committee, meaning that this person who doesn't even live in that state with no children is going to be able to police content for students in Oklahoma schools. And here he is with the picture of her tweeting on February 6th, making schools safe, i.e. purging schools of LGBTQ plus affirming material and adults. A day after that photo was taken, we learned how safe the schools are being made in Oklahoma, especially if you're a non-binary student. So when a stochastic terrorist who made a name for herself on the internet by smearing and doxing innocent queer people and their allies is appointed to a position of power over students in Oklahoma schools, it's not unreasonable to ask whether or not the adults here share some culpability. Not just Chaya Rychek, but everyone here, the politicians, the people at the school. I mean, this was a failure. They failed next. Maybe Nex was bullied by students that were taught trans people aren't people, because that's what they hear all the fucking time. I mean, if the school didn't even have the courtesy to call an ambulance, I have to assume that this speaks to their general lack of regard for trans students overall. In fact, one TikToker, I think, put it best.
Far-right Republican rhetoric contributed to the beating death of a 16-year-old student in Oklahoma. Just a few weeks ago, Ryan Waters, the superintendent of schools in Oklahoma, added the creator of Libs of TikTok to the school library board. And it was too much even for the people of Oklahoma. There was no benefit to putting a woman from California who has no children in the Oklahoma school system on the school board when the entire ethos of her social media account is to attack, dehumanize, criticize, and dox queer people. And that hateful rhetoric and dehumanizing of queer
Yeah, well, I have to assume that that's the point, right? Like, you know, it's not ignorance. It's not ignorance. At least I have a very hard time to believing that this is ignorance. This is intentional. And that's a good point. What is a person from California who has no children in the Oklahoma school system making decisions in any place in Oklahoma? That's wild. Yeah, plain as day hatred, exactly. This is not ignorance by any means.
queer people, coupled with the broad attacks on trans children, resulted in the death of a child.
That's exactly right. This outcome was inevitable given how hyperbolic and vitriolic and outrageous the rhetoric about trans people has become in this country. Not just in Oklahoma, all around the country. But that mild criticism there from that one TikTok creator was, I guess, too much for Chaya Rychek, because she is now threatening to sue her for saying what I think everyone sees as obvious. She writes, here's an account with 3 million followers just casually blaming a teen's death on me. She says I contributed to the death and my rhetoric resulted in the death. Defamation doesn't even begin to cover what this is. This is a straight up libel. I will not tolerate this. And then the emojis indicates that she's planning to sue. Now, it's incredible that
Yeah, if I'm correct, like I said, I don't know if he's going to mention it or if this was after the fact, but she knows that this is BS. She knows that this is BS, okay? She admitted, I don't know if it's about this specific case, but she even admitted that she's just doing this to hopefully scare people into being silenced.
Chaya Rychek, of all people, would cry about defamation for the fact that that is her favorite thing in the world to do. She defames people all the time. She defamed Nex's teacher and accused him of grooming, all because he said he would accept queer students rejected by their parents.
True. Screw her. Yep. She got caught in her ish, and now she's angry. Exactly.
So she loves defamation, but all of a sudden, she thinks defamation is bad. But here's the thing. This isn't defamation. She's not being defamed here. But the goal here in threatening to sue people who are criticizing her is to intimidate them into silence, bully them into shutting up. And that's not me saying this, even though that's generally what cowards tend to do. She basically admitted that this was the goal. She knows that she doesn't have a case, but she just wants them to stop criticizing her.
I'm discussing it with the legal team. Like, it's not off the table. And I mean, it's also like there's another aspect of, like, you know, even if you can't win the defamation case, or like there's a very likely chance you won't win, like sometimes it still might be worth it to take action just so that they stop this behavior.
Yeah, so there it is. Hey, Conscious Canuck. Yeah, so like there it is, right? I know. I'm glad he put that in there. Yeah, I knew that this was what this is about, right? And by the way, the redheaded libertarian is just one of the hosts from, I think, the Timcast team. So yeah, cool.
And that, my friends, is what we call a slap suit. And thankfully, many states now have protections against these kinds of lawsuits, so people who frivolously sue critics don't only get their cases dismissed, but they're also on the hook for legal fees as well if it's determined that the lawsuit they brought forward was indeed a slap suit. This would be the case with these threats that she's doing right now. So it's a dangerous game to play, honestly, if you're Chaya Raichik, especially for the fact that queer people she defamed could actually have legitimate defamation cases against her. So you would think that she'd want to save her money for those cases in the event, you know, one of the people she defamed chooses to sue her. But I mean, if you want to pay the legal fees of people who you're planning to sue, go ahead, do it, because you're going to be the one who loses. But I mean, this is what she tends to do. She weaponizes her large platform against innocent people and directs hate and incites harassment against them. And if that doesn't sufficiently get them to back down or shut up, she then threatens to sue. For example, journalist Emily Liebert of The Cut reached out to Raichik for a request for comment about an article that she's writing about next. And this is what Raichik did. She tagged her and accused her of doing a hit piece, all because she's reaching out for a request for comment. Beyond the pale. But I mean, if she didn't feel responsible in any way whatsoever, why wouldn't she respond? Why not defend herself and answer the questions of these journalists? Why not, at a minimum, offer condolences to Nexus family to show that you're not a complete monster? Well, it's because Chaya Raichik is a monster. She's an immoral person who's opportunistic, who doesn't care about the people that she hurts. But I want to take a moment to talk specifically about Nex, because they seemed like a really great kid. And it's so sad that we no longer have them in this world. The Independent reports that they were a straight A student with a cat named Zeus, and they were really into video games, specifically Ark and Minecraft. And their life was made a living hell all because of who they were, because they were non-binary. The school failed them. Politicians in their state failed them, and other queer, trans, and non-binary students probably see stories like this and feel hopeless. And I understand why you feel this way. But there's a really important message that I want to share with you from the TikToker who Raichik is threatening to sue. And I'm going to leave you with what she has to say, because what she says now is really important.
And if you're a kid out there right now who identifies as non-binary and you're seeing this kind of stuff and it's making you feel very hopeless, just know that there are people out here who are fighting for you, who are fighting to make sure that this never happens again. You will get to grow up, you will get to be who you want to be, and we will not let them take that away from you. So stay with me.
I'm library with kids, so right now, so it's not. Hey, Firefly, how's it going? Seem like a lovely person. Yeah, I think so. You know, they were just a kid. Yeah. Speaking of stochastic terrorists, Charlie Kirk wants Coca-Cola sponsored televised execution of Trump political opponents, and suggesting that children should be forced to watch them too. Yeah, cool. Things are getting better, huh?
I've seen it work. There has been a change in my workouts. I'd recommend it for everybody. I'll take it forever.
As far as other death penalties, I think what some of those guys did to...
Yeah, and like, let's not take it from the Midas touch, right? Let's just listen to them. Let's just listen to Charlie Kirk's words, I should say, himself. Yeah, I had some Baker Act type stuff. Yeah. Had a coworker died today, a heart attack. Used to be my coach and a manager. Jesus. Jeez, Conscious Canuck. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Just like those old tree parties.
Donald Trump to use the instruments of government to destroy the constitutional order, that should be under consideration. Okay.
And it was by firearm.
Yeah, that's how you should. By the way, this is my other problem with death penalty. It takes too long, too many appeals.
Expensive.
It should be public. It should be quick. It should be televised.
Well,
yeah. So that's pretty disconcerting in and of itself. Okay, like mind you, this is being broadcast on a podcast called Thought Crime. Okay. Yeah.
this can't be right, can it? The last execution in France was guillotine in 1977.
100% true. They used the guillotine
until
the whole way.
77.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
There's videotape of it.
Honestly, that's like what we should be doing, and I agree. It should be public
and
it should be public square.
By the way, you could fund
force
the government
kids to watch it.
You could have like
force kids to watch it. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's nice. Totally not unhinged. Yeah. I used to think it should be public so everyone should see how barbaric it is and end it. Now I just realize a lot of people would enjoy it. Yeah. I worked in a high-stress tech job and a coworker unalived himself. It was hard. Jesus.
To you by Coca-Cola. And no, I'm not kidding. By the way, I would totally tune in to see some pedo get their head chopped off. Convicted by a jury.
By the way,
peers.
that's going to get
no. I'm talking about a real thing. I'm not talking
all
about
executions in Belarus are by firearm. That's not a choice or anything.
Andrew's saying don't make kids watch it, and I think no, the absolute
I think
opposite.
at a certain age, it's an initiation.
16, if you can drive, you can watch
but hold on.
it.
You
Not
see,
even 16.
if
I would
all of a
say-
sudden you.
I love how like they're just casually like arguing like, you know, like no kids what age should we start just like letting them see public executions? Whew.
You look at some of these savages, like in Indiana, there was this guy that went in and killed a pregnant woman and her 3 kids.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to watch that execution. That'll make my day better. I want to see him on a public block and get him be publicly executed.
Yeah,
and I
see,
think that would be
like-
justice. You think children should have...
Yeah, I think this dude needs to be checked in. So then this is the path to how we get to Hunger Games type future. Yep. Kids see public executions every day. They're called school shootings.
You should see it. What is the age? At what age should you start to see public executions?
16.
I think you could do it earlier. I think you maybe at age 12,
Whenever-
sixth grade or
Jesus.
so. You are a person. You know they're old enough to. You don't need to like really wallow in it and have them be broken on a wheel or anything. But if it was something like chopping, if we had a guillotine or something,
I think it's the age where they can't be, I think there's too early and you become desensitized to maybe like this. I think it's when you can actually embrace.
But it should also be
the
taken
meaning.
in a holy way.
The meaning.
No, I don't mean holy in a bad way. I mean that like this is heavy.
Like, this is the
bluntly,
meaning
we have
of it.
kids who are 14 who are committing carjackings in
100%.
cities and doing
Yes.
bad stuff. And I think
Yeah, you're
if you
probably
sent the
right. Maybe
message
like
to
that.
them, if you do a bad crime, you will die, and it will be like this, and that
No,
will
but
be
just-
you.
just
But I think it
would be
tears
a
down.
positive message.
So my argument would be younger
Yeah.
people get involved with that because they're
This is completely unhinged. Again, the irony is not lost that this is on a podcast called Thought Crime. Okay?
with around older people who do those things.
I want you to imagine
And gangs.
every day, all of a sudden they said, and today, remember that awful the guy that went and shot up a school? Because, the left hates school shooters, and so do we. But they focus on the gun. I think they're evil. So, you take one of these school shooters, and they say, today we're going to publicly execute this person. And
About
they read
the
off
Super Bowl.
No, yeah, the shooters at the Super Bowl thing, and you read off what they did.
parade,
and
not
you don't celebrate it. You just say, look.
I mean, he literally just like 5 seconds ago, just said that it should be like sponsored by Coca-Cola. Okay, so like, come on, man. Whatever. Also, like, I love how like the argument is never about solving the root problem, just going straight to giving the state the power to just start doing public executions where specifically children should be allowed to watch. Unbelievable if I didn't hear it myself. Oh, you dropped a test tube with an unfertilized egg in it? Guillotine in public. Right. And like, you know, these are the same people, by the way. The first example that Charlie Kirk gave, very enthusiastically, by the way, is a showing a public execution of a PDF file. What do you think that they're constantly smearing LGBTQ people with? That's right, pedophilia. So it wouldn't be a broad jump to assume that what this guy is thinking is, yeah, we just need a perfect avenue to start like publicly executing LGBTQ people and anyone we deem degenerate publicly and make children watch. It isn't really that big of a leap to assume that this is where it's going to end up.
Look, this is what they did. And if you do this, this will be your fate. Ready, set, go. Boom. End of life. And say
guillotine.
I just
Scared Straight used to be a whole TV show.
No, but
like, this is Scared Straight for everybody.
Here's a question for anyone that might be, not persuaded. Would crime go up or down?
It would go way down.
Actually, no. No, it wouldn't. That's not how this works at all. You know what would actually solve crime and would actually make crime go down, but none of these people would ever support? Relieving the socioeconomic pressures that become motivation for crime. Okay? You start giving people things like food, housing, education, and healthcare, guaranteed a lot of motivation of crime just goes down astronomically. Okay, doesn't mean that crime just gets completely gone. But let's be honest, a lot of the motivation behind it would certainly be gone, and I think that it would do it would make a phenomenal dent in crime if you actually tackle the root causes of crime.
Done. So that why is this even a question?
Yeah. During an episode of the Thought Crime podcast, anti-MLK enthusiast and Turning Point USA CEO Charlie Kirk suggested that executing Trump's political opponents, those he feels disrupted Trump's ability to carry out his constitutional duties. Kirk pushed hard for a public embrace of the death penalty. The televising of these executions and allowed them to be sponsored by companies like Coca-Cola. Right, but don't glorify it. Kirk even suggested that children should be forced to watch these public executions. On executing those who frustrated Trump's agenda during the time in the White House, Kirk stated, as far as the death penalties go, I think that what some of the guys did to Donald Trump, to use the instrument of the government to destroy the constitutional order, that should be a consideration. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty disturbing, And when they get to the point where AI video is indistinguishable from regular video and someone generates the video overlay of Charlie Kirk on a killing spree, how supportive would he be of the guillotine then? Only 4 to 5% of crime is violent crime, of which a lot of that is desperate people who can't meet their material needs. Right. If you alleviate the socioeconomic pressure, and I imagine a lot of crime would go down. It would make a significant dent in crime. In fact, it's not just me pulling this out of the ether. This is known. This has been known. As far as other death penalties, I think what some of those guys did to Donald Trump to use the instruments of government to destroy the constitutional order, whatever that means, that should be under consideration, right? So any political opponents, any degenerates, anything like that, yep, straight to the guillotine, and the kids need to watch it. Some MAGA Republicans have complained about military generals, federal employees, and White House personnel who resisted Trump's more extreme impulses. Kirk appears to be calling for the execution of this category of Trump's political opponents. Kirk went on to say that the United States should embrace the death penalty in a more public way. Kirk wants the death penalty to be public, quick, and televised. The Turning Point CEO suggested that televised executions could be sponsored by Coca-Cola's way of funding the government. But don't glorify it, though. Quote, you could fund the government. You could have, like, brought to you by Coca-Cola. I'm not kidding, by the way. I would totally tune in to see some pedo get their head chopped off. Kirk suggests that public executions would improve his mood and children should be forced to watch it. Kirk then suggests that children at a certain age as initiation should have to watch the televised executions. The popular MAGA Republican leader said that watching these public executions would help him have a good day. Yep. And the rest we all know. But we can't reduce the crime. The profit prisons don't fill themselves up. Yeah, very normal and very hinged stuff coming out of the right wing here. Speaking of which, yep, looks like these clowns are back. These chuckle fucks have been seen several times already. I think I've done a couple of segments on these chuckle fucks, and in 2024 we still have marching Nazis just Sieg Heiling in public. Yeah, the Blood Tribe.
Cowards! Cowards! All of you! Cowards! Show me your faces! Where's your face, you cowards? Show me your face!
It's the Nazi Clown Brigade.
Show me your faces, cowards! All of you! Cowards! Cowards! Where's your face? Where's your face? Show me your face. I don't even know who you are. This is my face. Let's go. Where's your faces? Where's your...
You hear people poop in the streets. That's the master race, folks. The master race at work here. What annoys me is half of the crap they say is just to raise leftist ire. Who, the Nazis? You see, they do wear masks when necessary. Swing state Republican parties are in chaos, and that could matter in November. Maybe. In Michigan, Arizona, and Georgia, intense internal battles are tearing through the state Republican parties. American America didn't defeat Nazism, it absorbed it with open arms. Yes. It's also not a coincidence that the Nazis grabbed some ideas from us. So, in Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, intense internal battles are tearing through the state Republican parties. The fights largely pivot around divisions that opened up in the wake of the last presidential election. A new cadre of Trump loyalist party leaders, in many cases propelled into power based on their defense of the big lie that former President Trump actually won in 2020, have found themselves at war with more establishment-aligned Republicans and increasingly with each other. I mean, like, you know, the one thing that gives me a sliver of hope, the silver lining, if you will, is that fascism is inherently so incoherent that it inevitably eats itself and it inevitably fails. Hopefully, it ends up eating itself before it gets to do even more harm. But not before it does a lot of damage first. Yes, which the goal here is that when you see headlines like this, it just kind of gives you that small, tiny glimmer of hope that, you know, they're just so freaking incompetent, and they just eat each other and implode before any more damage is done. North Carolina's oranges, the only saving graces, and most of the state are independents now. These rifts in 3 potential swing states are one of, like, can you imagine, like, you know, let's be honest, okay? Let's be honest about the position right now. Let's be honest about Joe Biden's current position in terms of the election. Can you imagine, like, I personally, in my opinion, I'm thankful that these fascists are incredibly incompetent. Otherwise, you know, whew. These rifts in 3 potential swing states are one of many ways that Trump's hold on the GOP and the rise of election denialism in the aftermath of the 2020 election are defining not only the election this fall, when Trump loyalists could be looking at their 2020 playbook for ways to influence the outcome, but also the Republican state party organizations that will shape their state's politics for years to come. In Michigan, Republicans decided they'd have enough. The former state party chair, Christina Caramo, refused to concede either Trump's 2020 loss or her own loss in the 2022 Secretary of State contest, was a core part of her profile as an election activist. Caramo beat out a Trump-endorsed fellow election denier for the role earlier last year, promising to help the struggling party organization rebound after the 2020 Democratic sweep of the state and attract more grassroots donors. But the fundraising she promised never materialized. I wonder why. By the time the party hosted its biennial conference on Mackinac Island in September, it had to take out a $110,000 loan to pay for the keynote speaker. Disagreements in the party even led to physical fights at party meetings. It's like the slow turning of the country towards progressive values is fanning the flames of those who hate those very values. Yep. Fundraising woes, lackluster attendance at the biennial conference, and insufficient organizing ahead of the 2024 election increased dissatisfaction with Caramo's leadership, according to state party members. The fundraising has been just absolutely dismal with the state party, said Vance Patrick, chair of the Oakland County Republican Party, one of the largest in the state, covering the suburbs northwest of Detroit. Unfortunately, there's just no money in the bank, and the candidates rely on the state party, not necessarily just for money, but for the canvassing or door knocking and other things. The state committee voted Caramo out on January 6th this year, an unintentionally ironic date, Perhaps fitting, she hasn't recognized that vote as legitimate either. Ah, man. Phenomenal meme. Yeah. But the state and national party leadership, including Trump, have recognized her successor, former Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, and they're scrambling to make up lost time in this critical election year when Republicans hope to deliver the state for Trump, win a crucial Senate seat, and gain control of the state house. We have been divided. We have been a divided state for too long. There's only 9 months left before the election. With slightly fewer fireworks, a similar upheaval played out in Arizona, another state that swung from Trump to Biden in 2020 and saw a wave of Democratic victories in 2022. The state chair, GOP chair Jeff DeWitt, resigned on January 24th after Republican Senate candidate and former gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake, a MAGA favorite, leaked an audio recording of him apparently offering her money and a job to step out of the Senate race. A candidate backed by Lake and Trump, Gina Swoboda, has since taken over the Republican leadership in the state. Like Karamo, she rose to prominence as an activist working with organizations that have made unsubstantiated claims about the election in 2020. Her elevation seems to cement the role of election denialism as a driving force in the state party. 4 years after fake electors in Arizona were also involved in the effort to overturn the election. While DeWitt was also a Trump supporter, he had not been selected on a promise to move on from 2020, beating out further right candidates who had advocated for replacing vote counting machines in response to alleged fraud. Yeah. That's not fiscally responsible, true. Imagine building a coalition based on something completely fabricated. Poof, goodbye, GOP. Yeah, this entire thing is based on like nothing. It's based on a big lie. That's it. Yeah. Thankfully, what gives me the silver lining of hope is that these people are so freaking incompetent and so far removed from reality that they are tearing each other apart before their ability to organize even more and do more harm. That's about like, because like, let's be honest, like the position of the Democratic Party right now is abysmal. Okay, is abysmal. The fact that like, despite all of this that's going on, we are still looking at an incredibly close presidential race. Is absurd. It's laughable that we're actually reading a story like this and looking at how the GOP operates and looking at the polls and seeing that the Democratic Party is tied. Essentially, like. Statistically, like this is a pretty friggin' close race. With some swing states being in jeopardy, but at the same time you have this fascist party eating itself out. It's just wild. What a time! What a time! You love to see it. That's true. In Georgia, the Republican Party leaders like Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger thwarted efforts to cast doubt on the election results, irking some rank-and-file Republicans in the state and leading to rifts there. The Trump-aligned wing of the party included former state chair David Schaefer, who stepped down in June of 23, and has been changed since been changed in a Fulton County election fraud scheme. Charged in the Fulton County election fraud scheme in which Trump is also charged. Attempts to discredit District Attorney Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade, the lead prosecutor in the case, have brought it back into the spotlight and once again divided Georgia Republicans. The state party is also footing the legal bills for some of the fake electors involved in the scheme. The new party chairman, Josh McCoon, has generally aligned himself with Trump, The state convention in which he was elected featured a speech from Trump lambasting Willis, and Kemp was absent. These intra-party divisions are also playing out in various ways across the country. While Trump appears to be coasting to his party's nomination, he drew 10 major challengers. I wouldn't frame it as 10 major challengers. But okay. With an eye to his continued influence in the party, most of his opponents avoided criticizing him directly, but those who did generally maintained that his refusal to concede in the 2020 election was divisive and damaging for the party and country. Those arguments clearly didn't get any steam with GOP primary voters who... the cult, you mean? But to the extent in which the party remains divided over its former and likely future leader will be a defining question for Republicans heading into the 2024 election. State parties traditionally don't play a huge role, don't play a huge formal role in presidential elections, but they can certainly have an impact. While national candidates and party organizations have their own turnout and fundraising machines, state party filter money from national parties, recruit local and state candidates, and play a role in driving turnout. Even more directly in some states, including Arizona, Georgia, and Michigan, who are important states, also choose electors for the Electoral College vote, an issue that has become newly salient in the wake of the 2020 election denial. If there's a question about who gets on the ballot as electors, state party leadership comes into play because a lot of times the state party rules specify how electors are chosen, said Douglas Roscoe, a political science professor at UMass Dartmouth. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. In 2020, Schaefer wasn't the only Trump-affiliated high Republican state official apparently involved in a fake elector scheme. And in a scenario where fake electors challenge the results in their states, which is a central allegation in the Fulton County case against Trump, election-denying party officials could contribute to a repeat of the January 6th insurrection or other complications in the case of a close election. Yeah, that's kind of the problem with having a close election in this, in both this and the 2020 election. The issue is this exactly, because you best believe that these people are going to try to claim foul should it be the case that Biden ekes out a victory. Should that be the case, these people are going to cry foul. No doubt about it. With election deniers helping to shape state parties, another battle could open up if election results in the state are close and subject to court challenges in which these organizations traditionally play a role. They line up the attorneys, have a legal strategy for questioning the results, or calling for recounts or litigation, and so forth. They can be an entity that sues, that may matter most in states like Arizona, Georgia, and Michigan, where the presidential race could be close and legal challenges could originate. More broadly, state parties play a major role in selecting candidates for down-ballot races. A dearth of young Republican leaders seem to be an emergent challenge for the GOP, as support for Trump and the big lie remains a litmus test for those who would run for office. These younger Trump-aligned Republicans are often less experienced than their more establishment peers, more focused on grandstanding than policymaking. Yeah. Matt Grossman, a professor of political science at Michigan State University, pointed to Michigan Republicans' electoral failures in 2022, where the nomination of inexperienced anti-establishment candidates like Karamo, whose major qualifications were that they were championing the big lie, resulted in Democratic victories. If they are really nominating inexperienced people who are caught up with the refighting of the last elections, Grossman said, I think basically it could get a lot worse for the Republican Party. Here. Lauren Boebert comes to mind. Let's do another meme article. Shitter's Grill. Judge says Mike Lindell must pay $5 million to man who won his Prove Mike Wrong challenge. Man, I should have probably done this, man. This was easy money. Easy as $5 million. The federal judge is giving MyPillow founder and the election denier Mike Lindell 30 days to pay the $5 million arbitration award for losing his Prove Mike Wrong 2020 election challenge. The decision Wednesday by a judge in Minneapolis affirmed an arbitration panel's ruling last year that Lindell has to pay up for losing his own 2021 contest, challenging the experts to prove that the data he had in his possession was not from the 2020 election. The plaintiff in the case, Robert Zeidman, is awarded $5 million plus post-judgment interest beginning April of 2023 to be paid within 30 days of issuance of this order per the arbitration awards, said U.S. District Judge John Tonheim wrote in his ruling. Lindell told NBC News that he's likely appealed the decision in the corrupt case, but Zeman's attorney Brian Glassler said that he wouldn't stop him from having to pay in the meantime. If you want to stop the collection effort, you have to post a bond. Said Glassler. If Lindell does not do so, we have the right to use collection mechanisms to try to find the money, including by seizing bank accounts and using subpoena powers to track Lindell's assets. This dude's gonna lose everything, isn't he? This dude's gonna end up losing everything. He said he didn't believe Lindell would have any better luck with an appeal because the standard for review and arbitration is super high. Lindell said in a phone interview that Lindell Management LLC is the company that put on the event, not him personally, and that he's strapped for cash. He said that while his pillow company is doing fine, press X to doubt, quote, I don't have any money. I have a pickup truck and a house that I live in. That's it. Oh my God, he's going to lose everything. Glassler's client is a software developer and Trump supporter who attended an August 2021 cyber symposium in Sioux Falls, South Dakota that was being hosted by Lindell, an outspoken election denier and conspiracy theorist who maintains that the election was stolen. Zeidman was excited to see what evidence Lindell had turned up to back up his claims and testified before arbitration panel that he entered the contest because he wanted access to the data as promised to see the history in the making, perhaps to see an election overturned, the arbiter's ruling said. Zeidman told, and what's hilarious is that this dude is, an election denier. That's what's even funnier about this. Imagine losing $5 million in your livelihood to some neon orange asshole grifter. Told his friends that he was unlikely to win because Mr. Lindell would not offer a $5 million prize if Mr. Lindell had not had his own experts vet all the data. Zeidman said he was given 11 files to review in 2 days at the conference. Much to his chagrin, he found that it wasn't the 2020 election data. Lindell's contest panel did not agree with Zeidman's findings, so the dispute went before an arbitration panel. In his ruling, Tonheim said that after a court's review of an arbitration award is very limited. The Federal Arbitration Act requires that arbitration be upheld unless it is obtained by corruption, fraud, or undue means, where there is evident partiality or corruption in the arbiters, where there was misconduct by the arbiters, or where the arbiters exceeded their powers. The judge wrote, noting that a federal appeals court has held that an arbitration award will be vacated only where there is complete irrational or evidences a manifest disregard for the law. In Lindell's case, a judge said he had concerned about the way the panel interpreted some of the contract language at the heart of the case, but not enough to vacate the award. Even though the court may have reached a different outcome given an independent initial review of the information, the court fails to identify the evidence that the panel exceeded its authority. Under the court's narrow review, it will confirm the arbitration award. Lindell told NBC News last year that he could no longer afford to pay the attorneys who had been defending him in defamation lawsuits brought by the voting machine companies Smartmatic and Dominion, as well as the third lawsuit brought by some former Dominion employee, Eric Coomer. We've lost everything, every dime, he said in a phone interview. All of it is gone. Oh, man. Listen, I can't feel bad for this dude, okay? I don't. I genuinely don't feel bad for this dude. You know what? It serves him right, okay? It serves him right. Biden weighs invoking executive authority to stage a border crackdown ahead of the 2024 election. Not Trump. Biden. President Biden is debating whether to invoke a sweeping presidential authority that gained infamy during the Trump administration to stage a crackdown on migrants coming to the U.S. southern border. 3 people familiar with the plans told CBS News. Mr. Biden is weighing citing a law dating back to 1952 to severely restrict access to U.S. asylum system, which has buckled under the weight of record levels of migrant arrivals along the border with Mexico, the sources said, requesting anonymity to discuss the internal government deliberations. The law, known as 2012 or 212F, allows the president to suspend the entry of foreigners when it is determined that their arrival is not in the best interest of the country. The Trump administration used the law several times, including to ban immigration and travel from certain countries, most of them predominantly Muslim, and to bar migrants from asylum if they entered the country unlawfully. But like seeking asylum by definition is not illegal. If approved, Mr. Biden's executive action could be announced within the next 2 weeks, the sources said. An desperately trying to out Republicans. This is not the way to go. This is not the way to go. The Democratic base, by and large, it isn't asking you to out Republicans, okay? And no Republican is going to look at this and go, oh, well, I'm going to vote for Biden now. It's terrible morally, but on the other hand, it's also terrible politically. Yes, correct. If approved, Mr. Biden's executive action could be announced within the next 2 weeks, the sources said, and administration officials said no final decisions had been made on whether the president would take executive action to address the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border, where migrants have been arriving in greater numbers than ever before in American history. Any significant restriction on asylum would face formidable legal and operational hurdles. Still, issuing an executive order designed to curb illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border could be seen as an important political message from Mr. Biden ahead of the 2024 election. Border policy is one of Mr. Biden's worst polling issue, with multiple polls showing a majority of Americans disapproving of his handling of immigration. The executive order would also cement a dramatic immigration policy pivot by Mr. Biden, who vowed to restore the U.S. asylum system as soon after taking office in 2021. After record levels of migrant apprehensions along the southern border in the past 3 years, and growing discontent in Democratic-led cities receiving migrants, Mr. Biden's administration has embraced some restrictions on asylum. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Like, these people, like these Democratic mayors, like the New York City mayor, who's complaining, that they don't have the resources. Somehow, by the way, on one hand, they're complaining that migrants being bussed in are, on one hand, exhausting the resources, and on the other hand, didn't they just introduce a New York Police Department professional dance team or something like that? Like, come on. Come on. In fact, the White House brokered an agreement with a group of senators last month that would have granted the president powers to suspend the asylum law and summarily expel migrants during spikes in illegal immigration. That's one way of putting it. Also, that's violations of international law. You can't really do that. After insisting on restrictive asylum changes in exchange for supporting more broader funding for Ukraine, funding and aid to Ukraine, Republican lawmakers rejected the deal, saying it was not strict enough, and asterisks under the orders of Trump, by the way. In a statement, the White House spokesperson, Angelo Hernandez said that Republican lawmakers chose to put partisan politics ahead of our national security. No executive action, no matter how aggressive, can deliver the significant policy reforms and additional resources Congress can provide and that Republicans rejected, said Hernandez. We continue to call on the Speaker and House Republicans to pass the bipartisan deal to secure the border. If Mr. Biden decides to invoke this authority, his administration would face significant operational challenges implementing it at scale. Last year, the administration enacted a regulation that presumes migrants don't qualify for asylum if they enter the U.S. illegally after not seeking protection in a third country, but has not been able to screen migrants who cross into the U.S. illegally under those standards, given insufficient number of asylum officers, detention beds, and other resources. Instead, most border crossers in recent months have been released with court cases that take years to be decided due to a massive backlog of applications. The move would almost certainly face lawsuits if implemented. While the last version of the Trump's administration's so-called travel ban was upheld by the Supreme Court, lower courts blocked the government from using 212F authority to render most migrants ineligible for asylum at the southern border. It's unclear how the Biden administration expects its own efforts to invoke the 212F authority to prevail in court. U.S. law gives migrants on American soil the right to request asylum even if they cross the border without authorization. Because, by definition, it can't be illegal if seeking asylum is part of just the legal process. Lee Gallant, an ACLU lawyer who successfully convinced federal judges to halt the Trump administration's asylum ban, indicated that the government would likely be sued again if Mr. Biden issues a similar order. An executive order denying asylum based on where one enters a country would just be another attempt to the exact policy that Trump unsuccessfully tried and will undoubtedly end up in litigation. Like, if you didn't see the name, if you didn't see the name, how do I do this? Like, if you just saw this, it's pretty interchangeable as to who, the first person that comes to mind is Trump. If I just saw this headline like this, if this is the direction that the Biden administration is going to decide to go down, it's just not going to end well. It's illegal, it's immoral, and it's just bad politics. This is not what the base that purportedly would vote for you is asking for.
If you have it.
Basically the entire political establishment in the United States is expressing outrage over the likely murder of Alexei Navalny by Putin or by those associated with him. I mean, there have been multiple attempts on Navalny's life. He is was the number one critic of Putin in Russian public life, and he had his own problems and problematic ties to, say, anti-Muslim racism and things like that. But it doesn't take away from the deeply troubling and scary persecution and circumstances that Vladimir Putin's government has created within Russian society. So there are two things that can be true at once. Like Nancy Pelosi posing with Alexei Navalny's widow is clear propaganda for the United States, and it's also an indicator as to how truly repugnant this Putin regime is.
Yeah, and I'll just add, we started yesterday with the context of the Julian Assange case. No American has any right, in my opinion, to lament Navalny if they are supportive of what's happening, what America's doing to Assange.
Yes. They're similar in
their character doesn't matter, right? It's like they are persecuted by major states on this planet because they exposed things and were dissidents, frankly. And yeah.
I don't think that's a complicated notion that people can grasp here.
There's a wider principle.
Exactly.
There are wider principles at stake here.
Exactly. So putting that aside, right? As I said, basically the entire political class is expressing outrage about this in the United States, with the exception of a few. Republicans. J.D. Vance is leading the fight in the Senate to not send any more money to Ukraine. Other Republicans who are trying to fashion themselves as paleo-conservatives, whatever the hell that really means in practice.
Yeah, whenever I hear paleo-conservatism, that just ends up turning into white nationalism. That's just a euphemism, isn't it?
Are
conservatives that like dinosaurs? No,
yes.
Unfortunately, it's not that. It's about racism.
It would be so much cooler, but they're either silent or kind of stepping around this topic. Trump, though, decided that he finally should address it, and on Truth Social and during a town hall last night, he compared his legal battles in the United States to Navalny, again, who was just killed almost certainly by his own government. Just exactly like me. And that's so silly. It barely requires, any kind of rebuttal. But Nikki Haley is getting increasingly desperate because the South Carolina primary is on Saturday. She is down by a margin of 2-1 in her home state, where she was the governor.
Yeah. She's not gonna make it past this weekend, is she, folks? We're gonna wake up to an announcement Monday or Tuesday with Nikki Haley's concession speech, yeah?
You know, the executive of that state in that position. She's down 2-1 to Donald Trump, and she's still raising money, reportedly. She's been fundraising in Texas, raking in the millions, and I think it's reflective in the way that she is kind of steering her opposition to Trump here. This was her at a rally yesterday in South Carolina, trying to differentiate herself from Trump here by supporting Alexei Navalny and not supporting Putin. Here she goes, speaking to this one is her speaking to Martha MacCallum. There's a second one. Let's do the second one, then we'll do this as well, because she kind of just hints at it here in the speech in South Carolina, and then she gets a little bit more explicit on Fox News. So, yeah, speaking in Greenville, South Carolina, she alludes to Russia when speaking about Trump.
But 10 days after South Carolina, another 21 states and territories will vote. People have a right to have their voices heard. And they deserve a real choice, not a Soviet-style election where there's only one candidate and he gets 99% of the vote.
What's funny about that is that it's actually quite literally not a Soviet-style election in the way that she's trying to allude. The voters in the Republican base have made their preference incredibly clear. Putting aside the jingoism that is just so inherent, like, what she's alluding to is that it's a rigged election. Oh, are you trying to claim that it's rigged in favor of Donald Trump? I've got news for you. There is absolutely zero evidence that would show that. And is she claiming that?
Yeah, this is like, where's our managed democracy?
Yes, yes.
Why is there no room for the backroom candidate that all the power elites choose?
What is?
Nimrata recently said that Biden's more dangerous than Trump. Flip-flop.
What's she talking about? The Republican field just narrowed down from a bunch of nobodies that no one cared about. If it was an election that, was just about coronating Donald Trump, Soviet style, as she'd say, again, a not so subtle allusion to Russia here, then none of those candidates would have been running. No, the reality is that they all dropped out because they ran out of money after their donors figured out this is going to be Trump, and the Republican base doesn't want anybody else. So, in fact, it's democracy at work. But then again, she went on Fox News with Martha MacCallum and was a little bit more explicit in just tying Trump to Russia.
In terms of the former president talking about himself, he did that when he raised this question about what he thought about the killing of Alexei Navalny, which I know is a situation that you have watched very closely in Russia. And it's not, just about the tragic death that he suffered. It's about the implications of Putin's plans for other people. There are 2 Americans that are being held. Put that back up again. He said the sudden death of Alexei Navalny has made me more and more aware of what's happening in our country. It is a slow, steady progression with crooked, radical left politicians and prosecutors and judges. What do you think about that, Governor?
That just makes my point. It's amazing that here's a hero who challenged Putin, lost his life because of it. This is on the heels of Trump saying that he would encourage Putin to invade any NATO countries that didn't pull their weight. And now the only comment he's going to make about Navalny is not hitting Putin for murdering him, not praising Navalny for fighting the corruption that was happening in Russia, but instead he's going to compare himself to Navalny and the victim that he is in his court cases. That is my point. He is so distracted. He is so focused on himself. And America can't go through through this. We won't survive it. He's going to spend this entire year in a courtroom. There is a reason Biden and the Democrats so desperately want Trump to be the candidate for the Republican Party. It's because they know they can beat him. They've beat him multiple times over and over again. We need to start saying, what does it take to win? Because we can't fix this country if we don't win.
She has a point there, but you can't do anything if you don't win, Nikki. So the bind that Republicans are in, and the only thing saving them is the fact that Biden is an octogenarian who keeps slurring his words and making mistakes and is supporting a genocide and running to the right on the border and doing everything possible to.
Yeah. And yet somehow, thankfully, the fascists have decided to trip over each other.
Alienate the base that he needs to win this election, which I'm praying he does, because God forbid another Trump term. It's scary. But, like, what is she doing here? I've got... Think about this for a second. This was Hillary Clinton's strategy in 2016 in the general election from the Democratic side, talking about how Trump is connected to Russia. Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia. Now, there is some appetite for that in an MSNBC viewing base, right? Like, they don't like Russia.
Yeah, but like, listen, man. Let's be honest. There has been evidence that there has been connections. You know, we just literally went over an article where the GOP's informant or whatever lied to the FBI, their witness, whatever the right term for it is. Their dude lied to the FBI, got caught, and the information that he was receiving came from Russian intelligence. Okay, so this idea to just dismiss everything as just like a Russia hoax, that's not entirely true. Was it overplayed? Maybe. Was it handled poorly by the Democrats instead of, you know, maybe perhaps handling it in a different way? Probably. But to say that we can just dismiss it, no, I don't think so.
Get energized by the rivalry, the kind of Cold War.
At the same time, like, no, in terms of like just political strategy, I don't think anybody cares anyway. So I think that's what maybe Emma's trying to say.
Framework that they apply to it, and those are usually older liberals that are going to vote Democrat anyway. What Republican voter, like, is there one in the country that is swayed by Donald Trump not being vocal about the killing of Alexei Navalny? Which one? Because like it's the donors that she's talking to. Yeah. She's spending all of her time raising as much money as she can so she can get through South Carolina and still run on Super Tuesday, when she will get demolished then, and the race will be mathematically completely over at that point, as opposed to just over in principle. So this is indicative of a huge disconnect that Republicans voters also don't like, which is the sense that she is in a room with a bunch of donors talking about Alexei Navalny and, hey, we're trying to stop these Mexican rapists from coming over the border here, Nikki. This is our thing. Yeah. So this is just not something that is going to work at all. And, you know, Tim Scott was saying yesterday that Nikki Haley is desperate. That's true. Tim Scott would know. But I wish that she was going out with a little bit more of a spicy kind of attack than something that just got recycled from her friends over at Boeing.
Well, Trump shows that he like their incoherence, because it's like you can't, like I said, the Assange thing. If you support the persecution of Assange because he exposed American war crimes, you can't be us. There's going to be nobody here for your champion of other dissidents. It just doesn't make sense. So Trump, actually, he's not being silent about Navalny. He's saying he's saying like, I'm him.
I'm him.
And that's as coherent as what Nikki Haley says.
I'm him. Yes, right. Exactly. So it's she's keeping going for some reason. Again,
well, you got
she's the
payroll.
Fourth round quarterback starting at the end of the year on this team that's going, you know, 5 and 12 or something like that, seeing if she can be the starter in
her-
2028.
She might have a Kurt Warner moment.
Yeah. From bagging groceries to funding a genocide. That's the Nikki Haley experience.
True. Well, it may be fascist incoherence that may actually end up saving us after all, huh? Folks, it is 7 o'clock. We're just a little after. Thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate it. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. It really does help us out. If you're on the YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the stream. It really helps us out. Spread the word far and wide. We're here Monday to Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Join the Discord, okay? Join the Discord. You get a bunch of cool stuff, and you get to hang out with a bunch of cool people. And movie night is Saturday. Spread it forward. Lurking, but good to hear from you. Thank you. I appreciate you lurking. Don't forget, folks, movie night Saturday, 6 p.m. Also, if you are in the Discord and haven't voted, you can vote in the community poll channel. Currently, the sci-fi genre has it, which again, I think, given given the discourse, I think Starship Troopers is going to be the movie. So if you're interested, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, consider, yes, thank you, Heat, consider checking out the merch. You can support the channel while wearing some cool stuff. As always, folks, thank you. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Can I recommend a Twitch channel? Yeah, sure. Where do you want to go? Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for... Oh, this is adorable. This is adorable. I think so. Oh, if they're live, we'll go there. Let me see. Yeah, they are live. I think that's a great. Are you rating anyone? Oh, yes. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. They are live, yes. I'm doing my part, okay? I'm doing my part by streaming Starship Troopers Saturday 6 p.m. Thank you, Heath. Thank you, Spread It Forward, for and Michael Hassler for minding the chat. Thank you all. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Thank you for the follows, subs, biddies, all that awesome stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you, Alana, for hanging out in the chat. I appreciate it. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. Sharpie Diesel. I love y'all, and I hope to see you guys. Firefly in the next one, Monday, 6 p.m. 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. Confusing the movie night time. Look at that. Happy weekend indeed. Hang tight, folks. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I forgot the music. Look at that. Bye-bye. See ya.